Hi everyone, before we start today's story, I wanted to take the time to remind you to all go check out the go-to app for horror, Chilling. Chilling is taking the horror community by storm with over 700 ad-free creepypastas, scary stories, and true crime. Along with new horror constantly being added, you'll never have to worry about running out of spooky stories to listen to. I absolutely love their background ambience feature, which allows me to set everything to my liking to fit my desired mood. And you can always download content and listen offline while on the go. To get started with Chilling, give their free trial a try to test things out, and if you like it, it's only $2.99 per month after that. And Chilling is also running a PS5 giveaway, including 4 new games. To enter, start a free trial or be a subscriber in the app, and fill out the feedback form which will be linked below. It's really pretty easy. Again, links for the app and the giveaway and everything else will be down in the description below. Thanks again to Chilling for having me on board. There's something seriously wrong with Robot 908. At first I thought it was only bad luck, that people were being careless. But now I don't know what to think. Sorry, I'm getting way ahead of myself. My name's Dave and I work in an auto parts manufacturer. Now I can't name the company, so I'll just call it Chrysler. We create the various pieces that go into your car when it gets put together at the assembly plant. The only thing that's important when you work at Chrysler is the daily quota. We're divided into teams and we're kept accountable for every other team member when it comes to production standards. And by standards, I mean getting everything done on time no matter what. There is no emphasis on safety or technical training, only on speed. And that means getting new people out on the factory floor as quickly as possible, with little to no safety education. When I had told my brother Noel that I wanted to work at Chrysler, he said that it was awful, and to avoid it at all costs, since he had worked there before and had been lucky to get out alive. But I really needed a job and he couldn't talk me out of it. He told me to be careful, that there had been accidents and the company covered them up, paying off the family so the media didn't catch wind of what a death trap the place really was. My first week in the job, I literally almost died, and I would have too, if not for the fact that Danielle went into the cage instead of me. The robot that I was responsible for, Robot 908, had suddenly stopped working, going dead in the middle of an operation. Even though she wasn't my manager or supervisor, Danielle was on my team and my robot's output was needed to maintain our group's quota for the day. Without it, we would fall behind and end up on the crap list. Management followed up rigorously with anyone who didn't meet quota, and that meant losing out on bonuses, lost hours, and even dismissal if it happened frequently enough. Needless to say, we couldn't afford to let the robot stay inactive. "Did you call maintenance?" she asked, walking over to my station. "Yeah, I left a message, but you know how it is when you leave a message. I'll be lucky to hear back by Tuesday." "Keep calling, and Gideon will have an embolism if we're short again. You're the new guy, right?" "Yeah, hey, I'm Dave." "Danielle, listen, we need to get this up and running again ASAP. Oh, what's the error?" "Compression fault in stem 6. I told her and she shook her head, looking That kind of error means something's come loose and needs a manual adjustment. Call in maintenance again and don't stop until they pick up the phone. Nodding, I went back to the landline phone at the main control module and entered the number for the maintenance office again. The phone rang and rang, but there was no answer. After nearly an hour had passed by, we were getting frantic. The chance for making up lost time was dwindling right in front of us, and if we didn't do something quick, we would be in serious trouble, maybe even fired. And I really needed the job. I honestly couldn't afford to lose it. I guess Danielle felt the same way. "Watch my terminal," she said, adjusting her hard hat. "I'm going in." "Wait, are you sure? I thought we're not supposed to." But she ignored me, unlocking the cage door and swinging the chain-link gate open. Closing it behind her, she looked around to see if anyone was watching, and then stepped towards the robot. The caution sign stared ominously at me from the entrance as she did this. They read, "Stop. Do not enter. Extreme risk of severe bodily harm and death. Authorized maintenance personnel only." I stepped back, watching as she had approached the robot. It was a huge arm, standing connected to a pedestal which was nearly 10 feet tall. The whole thing was a monstrosity, towering much larger than any normal person. Danielle was dwarfed by it as she approached. "Hey, be careful. This seems like a really bad idea." "What's the error message again?" she called out to me. "Compression fault in Stem 6. I called out to her over the noise of machinery and robots whirring and welding all around us. "Okay, I think I see it. I'm gonna try something." She bent over with a screwdriver in her hand and began to tighten one of the connections. After barely touching the thing, it sprang to life, looking possessed. The massive robot arm had been mid-turn when it had shut off. Thus, it had resumed its motion and spun on its axis, straight into Danielle with tremendous force. Its glowing, welding rod drove straight through her eye, impaling her, and then it lifted her up from the ground and sent her spinning through the air. The huge machine picked up where it had previously left off, welding pieces of steel together, with the white-hot welding rod driven right through her skull. Each action of the machine glowed bright with extreme heat, and she screamed a high-pitched wail of agony as it did. Somehow she remained conscious and thrashing while this went on and on. After being dazed for a few seconds, watching the horrific scene unfolding, I came to my senses enough to hit the emergency stop button. The only problem was, it didn't do anything. The robot continued. Robot 908 kept spinning around rapidly, executing each function seamlessly, welding and rotating, pistoning the giant arm up and down, and bringing Danielle with it for each agonizing movement, while she kicked her legs and desperately grabbed at the hot welding rod, burning her hands as she grasped the heated metal, with bare palms sizzling and smoking. "Help! Get it off! Get it off!" she screamed again and again. I kept hitting the emergency stop button, but it did nothing, as if it wasn't even attached to the equipment. I would find out later on that management that didn't care for the emergency stop buttons, since they slowed down production. The other workers nearby didn't even turn from what they were doing to even look. They were all too concerned about missing their own quota. Wearing machinery and robot arms welding parts together covered the sound of Danielle screaming, drowning it in the cacophony of noise which continued all around us undeterred. It was obvious to me now that this was not the first time such a tragic event had happened, and no one seemed to pay any mind. I could do nothing but watch as she was sent spinning through another cycle of operations, and saw her blood being sprayed over the factory floor, soaking the machinery and the chain link fence surrounding her in red. I looked up a moment later and realized I was somehow inside of the cage with her. Mid-stride, I was approaching the mechanical beast, but I had no memory of ever entering the restricted area. It felt like I was in a dream, no longer in control of my own body. The huge steel arm swung around, aimed straight at my head. Danielle was still dangling from it, impaled through her eye with the welding rod. Her legs dangled and swung wildly as I jumped out of the way, barely avoiding an impact. Instead of following its normal routine, the arm was now swinging back repeatedly in my direction, attempting to thrash me to death as I barely dodged it each time. My heart was hammering with fear as I tried desperately to grab hold of Danielle's legs, to pull her off of the possessed machine, but it was moving too fast. It came around unexpectedly, and I felt a powerful impact in my midsection as I went flying across the cage, slamming into the chain link fence with a brutal collision that rattled my teeth and my gums. Finally, a maintenance man came out towards the cage, walking at a leisurely pace, whistling a little tune to himself. He saw Danielle in her face impaled by the machine, saw me in there with her, all beat up and bruised, dodging the robotic arm like a matador. And he didn't break his stride or even hurry one step faster. "You two really shouldn't have gone in there," he said calmly as I watched him open the control panel with a key. "Maintenance personnel only. Didn't you read the sign?" My jaw was hanging down at his lack of concern or empathy, and I couldn't believe his absolute calm as he reached inside the control module and fiddled with a switch marked "Emergency Lockout." And Danielle had stopped screaming and was now hanging limply from the giant robot arm as it continued its tasks, pretending to be just a normal robot once again. It abruptly stopped in the middle of a welding operation, pitting her against a piece of steel. Several men came out of nowhere, dressed in dark, vermilion-colored coveralls. They opened up the gate and went inside, beginning to clean up the scene all around me. The team worked quickly, not missing a beat as they tore Danielle down from the welding arm of the robot and put her in a black bag, carting her off somewhere else that I couldn't see. Honestly, I didn't even see them check for a pulse. And then the rest of them were cleaning up the mess with buckets, mops, and squeegees, moving quickly and not doing a very thorough job, I noticed, as if all they cared about was getting the machinery back up and running again as quickly as possible. "Man, oh man, Robot 908 again," the maintenance guy standing next to me said. "This one's been nothing but trouble, I'll tell ya, ever since it came into the factory." He dusted off his hands and I heard his radio crackle to life. The sounds of screaming could be heard through the receiver. You better go up to the management office. They'll want to talk to you. And you'll have to sign an NDA. Don't worry though, they'll make it worth your while. They always do. He winked and flashed me a grin with a gold incisor. Hurry up now. Don't want to keep them waiting. Time is money after all.